What does it take for an ordinary person to commit an extraordinary wrong? Not hatred, not cruelty, but something far more unsettling: obedience. In the shadow of the Holocaust, two brilliant minds, a psychologist named Stanley Milgram and a philosopher named Hannah Arendt, peered into the heart of this question, drawing from one of the history's most pivotal trials, that of Adolf Eichmann. Their discoveries reveal a truth that challenges us all. The line between good and evil is not always clear, and the choice to obey can lead to catastrophe. Today, let us explore their insights, confront the dangers of destructive obedience, and answer the call to think, judge, and act with courage. Milgram, a young psychologist at Yale in the early 1960s, driven by a haunting question: how could the Holocaust happen? Inspired by the trial of Adolf Eichmann, a Nazi bureaucrat who orchestrated the deportation of millions to their death, Milgram designed an experiment that would shake our understanding of human nature. In a stark lab, he asked ordinary people, clerks, neighbors, teachers, to play the role of a teacher, delivering what they believed were electric shock to learners for incorrect answers in a memory test. The learner, an actor in another room, was never harmed, but the participant didn't know that. As the shock climbed to the dangerous 450 volt, which was marked as triple X, on the machine, the learner screamed, pleaded, and fell silent. Yet, when a calm authority figure in a lab coat urged, "Please continue," 65% of the participants obeyed, pressing the switch despite their own distress. Milgram called this destructive obedience, the chilling willingness to follow orders that harm others simply because an authority demands it. His participants weren't villains. They trembled, sweated, and wrestled with guilt. Yet, many couldn't stop. Why? Milgram found that the legitimacy of the authority, a scientist's lab coat, the prestige of Yale, made people feel less responsible for their action. They entered an agentic state, seeing themselves as mere tools of someone else's will. "I was just following orders," they said, echoing a phrase that reverberated through history, from Nuremberg to Jerusalem. Now, let us step into Jerusalem's courtroom in 1961, where those words, "I was just following orders," echoed in the trial of Adolf Eichmann, a high-ranking Nazi SS officer. Eichmann was no soldier wielding a weapon. He was a bureaucrat whose paperwork fueled the final solution, sending millions to ghettos and gas chambers. Captured by Israeli agents in Argentina in 1960, he faced 15 charges, including crimes against humanity, in a trial that gripped the world. Over 100 Holocaust survivors took the stand, their voices raw with pain, recounting the horrors of deportation, loss, and genocide. Eichmann, seated in a bulletproof glass booth, insisted he was a cog in the machine, a man merely doing his job. The court rejected his defense, declaring his actions a deliberate choice to enable mass murder. On May 31, 1962, Eichmann was hanged, the only death penalty ever imposed by an Israeli court. Watching this trial was Hannah Arendt, a German Jewish philosopher who had escaped the Nazis. In her book, Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report on the banality of evil, she introduced a phrase that still haunts us. The banality of evil, Eichmann, she argued, was not a monster driven by hatred, but an ordinary man marked by thoughtlessness, a failure to question the moral weight of his actions. The trouble with Eichmann, she wrote, was precisely that so many were like him. and that many were neither perverted nor sadistic, that they were and still are terribly and terrifyingly normal. Her philosophy, rooted in works like The Human Condition and The Origin of Totalitarianism, warns that evil can emerge from the mundane, from the unthinking obedience of people who follow orders without pause. Arendt believed our humanity lies in our capacity for action, to engage in the public sphere, to speak, to create new beginnings. She called this natality the spark of possibility in every person to challenge the status quo. But she also saw that totalitarian systems crush the spark, reducing individuals to obedient cogs, as Eichmann became. Her words cut the core. No one has the right to obey. This is a direct challenge to the destructive obedience Milgram exposed. Their participants surrendered their moral compass under authority's pressure. The Eichmann's trial and the Milgram's experiment converge on a sobering truth. Ordinary people can become complicit in extraordinary harm when they defer to authority without question. Milgram showed how easily we obey, even when our conscience screams to stop. Arendt revealed the thoughtlessness that makes such obedience possible, urging us to think critically and take responsibility. Their insights are not looked in the past, they echo in our world today, in systems that demand conformity, in policies we follow without scrutiny, in moments we stay silent when we should speak. So, what is our responsibility? It is to reject the excuse of just following orders. It is to honor the survivors whose voices in the Eichmann trials reminded us of the cost of obedience. It is to heed Milgram's warnings that authority can bend even the kindest hearts. And it is to embrace Arendt's call to think, to judge, to act, not as pawns but as individuals who shape a just world. Hannah Arendt's philosophy of banality of evil is not about excusing evil, but exposing its mundane roots. She argued that thoughtlessness is a universal risk, not limited to the extreme cases like the Holocaust. Today, the banality of evil applies to unreflective compliance. In her work, The Human Condition, 1958, she distinguishes three fundamental activities: labor, work, and action. Action is central as it allows individuals to express their unique identities, exercise freedom, and create new realities through collective deliberation. Arendt's concept of natality, the capacity for new beginnings inherent in every birth, underscores action's transformative potential. She believed Eichmann's thoughtlessness was a failure of both moral judgment, that is personal ethics, and political judgment, that is public deliberations, as he neither questioned the orders nor considered their impact on others. Her philosophy suggests that resisting destructive obedience requires cultivating judgment through dialogue and empathy, not just individual conscience. In an era of misinformation and polarized debates, judgment is critical. Her philosophy, intertwined with Milgram's findings and Eichmann's trial, offers a timeless framework for addressing destructive obedience in modern context. Her concepts illuminate the ethical challenge of Milgram's experiment: deception, harm, and coercion, by highlighting the dangers of thoughtlessness. Her pen, a lantern in the dark. Watching him, she sees not a demon, but a man, terribly and terrifyingly normal. In her words, the banality of evil takes shape, a thoughtlessness that lets ordinary hands wield extraordinary harm. In a quiet pulse of human heart, a question hums: what bends the soul to break its own compass? So what's the solution? A psychologist, a philosopher, and a Nazi trial hold the answers. Their stories unmask destructive obedience and call us to kindle courage, step into this tapestry of choice, woven with trembling hearts and defiant voices. With open heart, break the chain. Through judgment's glow, heal the pain. Natality's spark lights path anew. Together, we weave a world that's true.